Welcome everyone to WarThunder Histories, episode 14. Today we're looking at the most iconic German bomber of World War II, the Heinkel HE111. As always, we'll talk about its design and development, service history, notable combat action, and how the HE111 H-6 specifically performs in-game. I hope you enjoy. After its defeat in World War I, Germany, under the restrictions of the Treaty of Versailles, was forbidden to operate an air force. However, Germany began to design and produce aircraft in secret, designated as civilian transports in the 1930s. Many aircraft designers seek the benefit of German rearmament, including Ernst Heinkel. He set out an official goal to produce the world's fastest passenger aircraft, which was met with skepticism by the German aircraft industry as a whole. Undeterred, Heinkel entrusted the design in Siegfried and Walter Gunther, both relatively new to the company and untested in aircraft design. Then in 1932 the HE-70 was produced. Known as the HE-70 Blitz, or Lightning, the aircraft immediately began to break records. Powered by a single BMW 6 engine, in its 4-passenger configuration was able to reach speeds of 230 miles an hour, which was fast for the time. The HE-70 also featured an elliptical wing, which was later incorporated on the HE-111. The design piqued an interest with the Luftwaffe that was being created in secret by Germany. Unfortunately for Heinkel, the HE-70 design was overshadowed by the twin-engine Do-17 designed by Dornier. Then in June of 1933, Albert Kesselring, who was the head of the Luftwaffe Administration Office, visited Heinkel's offices with the goal of securing modern aircraft with transport and bombing capabilities. During this meeting, Kesselring was able to convince Heinkel to move his factory from Warnemünde to Rostock, with the factory airfield in the coastal region of Rostock, along with gaining a 3,000-strong workforce for mass production. Heinkel immediately began work on newer designs, gathering urgency with the appearance of new US designs such as the Lockheed 12, Boeing 247 and Douglas DC-2, which would later be worked upon to become the DC-3 or C-47 Skytrain. With Dornier's Do-17 design having overtaken the HE-70's design, Heinkel spent 200,000 man-hours to design and produce a twin-engine version of the HE-70, eventually producing the HE-111. Although the base design of the HE-111 featured its iconic elliptical wing, along with the HE-70's rounded tailplane, the early variants did not yet have the greenhouse nose that later variants had. Instead, it had a more traditional stepped cockpit. The HE-111P, which was delivered to the Luftwaffe units in the fall of 1938, was the first variant to incorporate a glass nose. The first HE-111, designated the HE-111 V1 with civilian registration Delta Alpha Delta Alpha Papa, flew on February 24, 1935. Piloted by Heinkel's chief test pilot Gerhard Nitschke, he was ordered not to land at the company's factory airfield as it was deemed as too short. He later ignored these orders, landing back there anyway, later stating that the aircraft showed no risk of overshooting the end of the runway. It was also noted that the HE-111 V1 had excellent flight and landing characteristics along with an excellent speed for its time. The aircraft design was praised for its stability during cruising, gradual descent and single-engine flight, along with no nose drop when the landing gear was deployed. During the second test flight, which took place soon after, it was noted that the aircraft had insufficient longitudinal stability during a climb and while flying at full power. It was also noted that the ailerons required an unsatisfactory amount of force to operate. After these test flights, prototypes V2 and V4 were produced under civilian registrations Delta Alpha Lima India X-Ray, Delta Alpha Lima Echo Sierra, and Delta Alpha Hotel Alpha Oscar in May of 1935. One of the V2 prototypes, Delta Alpha Lima India X-Ray, featured 10 civilian passenger seats, entering service not as a military aircraft but as an airliner for Deutsche Lufthansa in 1936, along with 6 other newly built versions now designated as the HE-111C. The first military variant of HE-111, the A0, which was initially registered as Delta Alpha Lima Echo Sierra, only 10 of these were produced, with the first entering service on January 10, 1936. Eventually all 10 were sold to China after they were deemed insufficient by the Luftwaffe and their needs. The HE-111 A0 also received recognition as the fastest airliner in the world, achieving speeds above 250 miles per hour. The aircraft could have achieved greater speeds had the 1000 horsepower DB600 inverted V12 been available, but Heinkel was forced to use the 650 horsepower BMW 6 upright V12 liquid-cooled engines instead. Overall, there were 32 prototype variants of HE-111, with the aircraft officially entering service in 1935. The first HE-111s to see combat were HE-111 E1s, produced in February of 1938, just in time for Germany to test their aircraft during the Spanish Civil War. Serving in the Condor Legion, HE-111 E1s could carry 250 kg bombs in 4 internal bomb racks, with the bombs pointing nose up. The 250 kg bombs could be individually replaced by 4 50 kg bombs depending on the mission. Later variants of HE-111 could have 8 internal bomb racks to house the same bombs. All HE-111s that served during the Spanish Civil War were crewed by Luftwaffe and Wehrmacht men. HE111s also served through the invasion of Poland in 1939 as the HE111 P. Now with the iconic glass nose, they were tested and produced as the HE111 V8 prototype, gaining the P designation after testing in January of 1938. The glass nose design was implemented in 1937 due to pilot complaints about visibility. This made the aircraft much easier to taxi, take off and land, as the pilot seat could also be elevated to see above the upper glazing with a small window above his head. With the invasion of Poland, it was also noted that the HE111 had an insufficient defensive armament, originally only being mounted with two MG-15 7.92 machine guns in the nose and dorsal turret positions. They were beginning to be fitted with 4 to 5 MG-15s in the nose, dorsal, waists and gondola positions between 1939 and 1940. By the invasion of Poland, it was noted that just over 700 Heinkel HE111s were in service, forming the backbone of the Luftwaffe bombing force alongside Heinkel's previous rivals, the Dornier Do-17. The most common variants of HE111 were the H variants, being the most widely produced and seeing more action than any previous variant. The first H variant was the HE111 H-1. These were P models with the new Junkers Jumo 211 1100 horsepower engines, able to carry 8 SC-250 250kg bombs or 32 SC-50 50kg bombs, along with initially being armed with the standard 3 MG-15 7.92 machine guns in the nose, dorsal and gondola. The H-2 was then produced in August of 1939 with the same specifications as the H-1, only not being upgraded P variants, and then followed by the H-3 in October of 1939. The H-3 was fitted with a much better defensive armament, with the ability to fit the MG-FF 20mm cannon in the nose or forward gondola, 2 MG-15s in the waist positions, and an MG-17 belt-fed machine gun in the tail that could be operated by the pilot. The H-4, which soon followed, was fitted with the ability to carry 2 1000kg bombs or one 1800kg bomb on an external bomb rack, but due to its mounting it was then unable to carry an internal bomb load. Both the HE111 H-3 and H-4 were able to fit barrage balloon cutting equipment forward of the engines and cockpit if needed, but it was deemed too difficult to fly and production was quickly halted. Overall, H variants were made from the H-1 all the way through to the H-20, with various modifications, notably the H-16, which was fitted with radar to search for shipping along with the abilities to carry the V-1 flying bomb. The HE111s went through many upgrades during their career, along with serving in almost every Luftwaffe campaign, including the Battle of Britain and Battle of Stalingrad most notably. The HE111s eventually could carry almost every weapon or bomb used by the Luftwaffe by the end of the war, including the Fritz X guided bomb. With even the HE111Z, which was essentially two H-6s bolted together, could tow the Me-321 glider or carry the Henschel HS-293 guided anti-ship missile. The HE111Z only ever saw limited service as only 10 were ever produced. Between 1935 and 1944, a total of 6,508 HE111s were produced, primarily operated by the Luftwaffe. A number was sold to China in the pre-war years, along with Turkey receiving and operating 24 HE111Fs from 1937 to 1944. It is known that both the Slovakian and Romanian air forces operated HE111s, but I can't find any solid numbers on how many they operated. The Allied powers such as the Soviets, US and British operated captured HE111s to find weaknesses. British test pilot Eric Brown, who flew a captured HE111 in 1940, noted that the aircraft was very easy to taxi due to its glass nose, providing great visibility only hindered by rain and bright sunshine. He also noted that the aircraft was very stable and well balanced in flight, with the only significant negative note being that the aircraft had the tendency to drop a wing when landing, usually on the port side if the airspeed was dropped below 90 miles per hour. The second largest operator of HE111 was the Spanish Air Force, who flew HE111s until 1958, also producing license-built versions designated as the Casa II 111 between 1945 and 1956. If you'd like to see a genuine original HE111, you can do so at the RAF Museum Hendon in London, England, and if you'd like to see an HE111 fly, I believe there is a US private owner who has built one, and it is airworthy as far as I know, but I don't exactly know where to find it, and I don't know if it shows at air shows or what it does, but I'm pretty sure there is one out there. The HE111 H-6 is a German Rank 2 battle rating 2.7 frontline/torpedo bomber, armed with 6 defensive MG-15 7.92 machine guns, 1 in the nose, 1 in the dorsal, 2 in the waists, and 2 in the gondola, with an MG-17 7.92 machine gun in the tip of the tail. The aircraft can carry any of the following ordnance combinations: 32 50kg bombs, 8 250kg bombs, 2 1000kg bombs, 2 1000kg bombs with a 250kg bomb, 1 Fritz X guided bomb, or 2 torpedoes. The aircraft has a crew of 5, a pilot, bombardier/nose gunner, radio operator/dorsal gunner, a waist gunner, and a gondola gunner. The aircraft has a maximum speed of 267 miles per hour at 18,696 feet, with a max altitude of 27,880 feet. It takes 32 seconds to make a full 360-degree turn with a 906 feet per minute climb rate. It also requires at least 1,673 feet of runway for takeoff. Obviously, this is all dependent on your bomb load and your fuel load. There is some, but not much armour in this aircraft, with the rear fuselage having a number of 8mm thick steel plates, with the gondola also receiving 6mm thick steel plates around it. The pilot receives a 10mm thick steel seat, with the bombardier receiving a 5mm thick steel bench. Overall, the armour plating will only stop small caliber rounds and flak. So what do I think? At 2.7, the HE111 H-6 is a very capable bomber with a very reasonable bomb load. I mean, it does exactly what it's marketed to do. It's a bomber. It can bomb ships, it can bomb ground targets, it can bomb bases, it can bomb airfields, it can do what it needs to do. Another great side about flying the HE111 in-game is it handles very, very well. It has very good manoeuvrability for a twin-engine bomber, and also at low speeds it handles very nicely, especially when coming into land. As long as you don't drop the airspeed below 90 miles an hour, you won't stall and you can land it very smoothly. Now, another thing I love about the HE111 is when playing it in sim, where you don't have the ability to fly from outside. I mean, obviously you can switch to the gunner's positions and fly from there, but then you've just limited yourself in terms of what your gunners can do, especially if you have a max crew. On the note of the gunners, the only significant disadvantage with the H-6 is its defensive capability. I always recommend when you play the HE111 that you fly with at least one or two other aircraft, because that way you've got the collective defense of multiple machine guns. A single 7.92 machine gun is not very capable of doing anything against fighters that attack you. So with multiple aircraft you have multiple guns, and more than anything the machine guns act as a deterrent because no one really wants to fly into a hail of lead. Overall, I think the HE111 is one of my favourite German aircraft to fly. It's very, very smooth, it handles very, very well, and as I say, it's got a very reasonable bomb load, which is exactly what you want from a bomber. Anyways guys, thank you very much for watching. I'd like to say thank you to Bowery Jupiter 54, Creeper AK and Range Wolf 313 for helping me get this footage together. As always, please let me know in the comment section below if there's a vehicle or battle you'd like to see in the series, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing, and of course if you liked today's video, leave me a like, and if you didn't like it, feel free to leave me a dislike. Any kind of feedback is always good for me. Now, thanks all again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.